Now we move on to an area, and this has come up in a little bit, and I get the sense in some of the earlier material we've been discussing, but content, so precious to the content producer and precious all the way along the workflow, or however one wants to call it, the media asset management chain. How comfortable can people feel about trusting their content to a third party? Peter, if I can start with you.
I mean, obviously, as Globecast, I have to say, very comfortable. They should feel very, very comfortable. But I think it goes back to the point of, as a content owner or a broadcaster, that is their product, and that is their crown jewels. It's everything to them, and quite rightly it should be. And I think that it's outsourcing storage management, or whichever particular little bit you want to talk about, is always going to be something which is a difficult question for them to ask. And I think that we do now see more and more people starting to see that the benefits of allowing somebody else to help with that. And it might be that the outsourcer is only going to looking after part of it or the entire workflow. They could be providing workflow tools, but then the content remains stored within the organisation. I mean, there are so many different ways it can be cut. And I think it's just a question of finding the right balance that means that the content owner remains comfortable and gets the benefits that they're looking for. I mean, one of the key things that a lot of broadcasters see in one of the benefits that can be taken from an outsourced model is helping to break down the boundaries between different organisations. So, for example, if you have a broadcaster or content owner who's working with a quite complicated workflow with different parties, different providers involved, having somebody else take a step back and try and manage some of this workflow or track some of this content can allow them to work with all these different parties without having to necessarily directly integrate with each other, which saves an awful lot of cost and political difficulties in doing so. So the benefits are definitely there, and it's just a question of making sure that the confidence in the security and safety are met.
I think that you have got to outsource. If you look just specifically at storage, we've said already that the amount of content is becoming huge, humongous, effectively. You need a building the size of United Nations almost to just store it all in. Now, not every company can afford that sort of infrastructure. Without thinking of the cost of the storage medium, you've got the normal building costs, heat and vent, electric, power. Those costs themselves would just be so humongous that you have to outsource storage, for example. I guess the IT model is probably the best one because they talk about data centres around the world. It also gives you protection if you can outsource it, because diversity is a reasonably easy thing when you get to data centre models. So I don't think there's any option but to outsource.
Vast hangar buildings full of tapes, other buildings full of workflow management.
I think outsourcing in the broadcast and media industry is nothing new. I think it's a greater challenge today, insofar as that outsourcing of media preparation and tape duplication has always been there. So I think there's always been an industry around the outsourcing of some of the content preparation and putting a content owner putting their content out to that industry. I think the challenge now is really around the security, as Peter says, the security of that content these days. It's so much easier to, if you like, rip off a digital file than it is a physical videotape and duplicate it back in the older days. So I think there's more of a challenge in securing the content, but I think it's, we see it all the time in play-out facilities. So broadcasters outsource their play-out operations. That's been a traditional thing. I think it's cyclical. I think it goes in cycles. Sometimes it comes back in-house and sometimes it goes. But I think in general, outsourcing is a good thing. But I do think there are some challenges, especially in today's digital environment, where it is so easy to take a file and distribute it on the internet within seconds. We've seen it already. Toy Story 3 has been on the internet now for a long time. So the studios that have created that have then put it out to production facilities and duplication facilities, and it's been taken from someone. So there is a challenge there that I think that the outsource organisations have got to try and meet.
I think with the sort of security side of things in particular, it's it's pretty important for any business in our industry now. I mean, whether they be an actual broadcaster or someone doing some outsourced work for them. I mean, the security side of things really is a way of mind rather than necessarily just a set of technologies, and it's something that we can look at other industries and we can learn from. I mean, if you look at the intelligence industries or even financial services, I mean, they've been working with quite strict security rules for quite a long time, and they've developed quite portable approaches to things that we can implement and learn from. And these things don't, generally speaking, cost that much money to do. It's a question of slight changes to working practices, slight changes to culture. It's not always just a question of going and buying a box, implementing it. It's often just a question of tweaking what you've already got, and something that can usually be quite easily done.